Good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome. My name is Nina Bassoli, and I work within the field of architecture, and I work here at the Triennale di Milano, and I'm really pleased to moderate this morning this interesting conversation concerning the city of Rome, the municipality of Rome, in particular the district, the contemporary district, which is a new initiative for the municipality of Rome. And it is a real pleasure, actually, to host this conference here in Milan, because we share the same goal, that is to say, to always have a direct link in between our territories, our cities, especially when we talk about architecture, which is deeply linked to the landscape and to our shared story. Of course, we live in a very important place from the historical point of view, and I really would like to thank you all for being here today, and I really would like to thank all the guests of our conference. So this conference will be divided into two different moments. So first of all, we will have a presentation thanks to Mr. Battani, Ms. Vittorini, and Mr. Bruschi, and then we will have a round table in order to discuss about new potentials and perspectives of the contemporary district. So before starting with our speeches and presentation, I would like to welcome here on stage the president of Triennale di Milano, Mr. Stefano Boeri, and I'm really pleased to give him the floor. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I just would like to welcome you all at the Triennale di Milano, and we're really pleased to host this important conference that is not just about a recent past, an extraordinary past, a past that unfortunately is not that well known at the moment when we talk about contemporary and modern architecture. So architectural works of art realized in between the two world wars, but also more contemporary and modern architectural work of art. It is a real pleasure, actually, to work with you and to share with you some projects. Outside this room, you can see some very interesting projects, in particular when it comes to the exploitation, international exploitation of Italian architecture. So this initiative that was created by the Farnesina, that is to say, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is extremely important for us in order to start talking about urban regeneration and the regeneration of our architecture in general in Italy. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you very much. So we can start right off our conference. I think it is the first time this project is presented here in Milan, so we're really pleased that you decided to do it here at the Triennale di Milano. And I would like to ask to Mr. Battani, Umberto Battani, who is the ambassador, let's say, of this initiative, to talk about the idea of this contemporary district located in the northwest of Rome, which is pretty rich in history and heritage. So you have the floor now. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The first thing to do is to say thank you. I really would like to thank the president of this important institution, that is to say, La Triennale di Milano, Mr. Stefano Boeri. I'm really pleased to meet him again this morning. I also would like to thank the General Director, Carla Monogallo, their collaborators, and also would like to thank Nina Bassoni, because it is thanks to her if we were able to fill in the gap, actually, because the previous moderator could not join us this morning. And so I really would like to thank her because she was available in order to support us for this conference. I also would like to thank Alessandra Montecchi for the organization. And then I would like to greet several friends that are in here with us today, the representatives of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, the Minister Filippo La Rosa, Ambassador Andrea Canepani. So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is fully present this morning, and this is very important for us all. And also would like to thank the representatives of Roma Capitale, of the municipality of Rome, so the Councillor for Culture, Mr. Miguel Cotor. Also would like to thank Professor Fulvio Verace. And I would like to say that it is a real honor to have the president of Fondazione Maxi here with us, because we're collaborating with Fondazione Maxi for this specific project. We will also welcome Daniele Piteri, the president of Fondazione Musica. And I also would like to say a great thank, actually, to the Scientific and Technical Committee and the representatives of that committee, because they've always supported us and worked with us. And then, of course, I would like to thank all the people that decided to join us for this conference. I would like to show you some pictures, some images. And actually, some of the questions that I frequently receive is the following. Why does the Ministry of Foreign Affairs focus on architecture that much? And why does the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has a collection of contemporary art? Actually, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Italian ministry, decided to start that collection almost 25 years ago, also before some of the most important Italian museums. And to explain that, to explain the reason why we do that and how we do that, I'm going to use some pictures. As I said before, I'm going to show you some pictures. So this is the indoor of a palace that I suppose a lot of you know, a palace located in Rome. This is Palazzo Chigi. It is right in the center of the municipality of Rome. And starting from 1922, this is the headquarters, let's say, of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And this palace is situated in front of a very important column. That palace was founded and built by the family of Ando Brandini. And then through the years, it became the embassy of Spain, of Austria, and then it was purchased, let's say, by the Italian government in order to become the headquarters of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This is a very important palace with a very important Baroque style. It is really close to Navona, to Piazza Navona, of course. And as you can see from the pictures, these are the different rooms, of course, that we can find in this palace. We can find a lot of important paintings, a lot of important frescoes. But that was not the perfect place for our collection of art. Actually, in 1960, something happened, and it led us towards, let's say, a different direction, because we were placed, let's say, in another location on the other hand of the river in a totally different place. And you can imagine the disappointment of my colleagues previously working in Palazzo Chigi. So they thought they were quite isolated from the city center, from all the other main palaces and ministries. So they experienced that moment in a negative way. And for 40 years, the palace built by Enrico del Debbio was kept intact. It still was basic and simple, I could say that. So when I came back from Germany in 1997, I found that palace that you can see also in this picture, that according to me was not that beautiful, because over time there was no maintenance at all, and the facade is made of travertino marble, but nobody polished it through the years, nobody cleaned it through the years, so the facade was completely black, and everybody called that specific palace the skull, because it was completely dark. So when I first entered, I found a lot of corridors and rooms that were completely empty, and all those rooms were not lighted up, so there was no light at all. And I said, what have we done inside this palace? We did nothing at all throughout the year, no maintenance, no cleaning. And I still remember that when foreigners and people from other countries came to Italy to visit us, they were, let's say, quite disappointed to see the headquarters of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So we said maybe we needed to change the palace we work in, because this is a republic and we need to provide the perfect image, a wonderful image of our country and our republic. So the only way to provide a new and modern vision of our country was to include works of art. So I started asking some friends of mine and some different artists to provide us with very important works of art, contemporary and modern works of art. And I will show you the first work of art getting to the Farnesina, to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So in here we can see some scratches from Mr. Del Debbio. And this is the first work of art entering the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I asked it to a specific artist to provide this very important sculpture. It was also quite difficult, actually, to bring it to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it is now located in the most visible area of our palace, because it is right in front of the different lifts and elevators. So in a very limited period of time, we were able to welcome to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to this specific palace, several works of art. We also had several works of art from Dorazio, for example, San Filippo, Torquato, Perilli. So a lot of different artists. And then we moved on towards the avant-garde movement. Anyway, we were able to focus on the entire artistic landscape of the 20th century. And I think that one of the most successful attempts to better represent that overview is the one carried out by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So we still have very important works of art, some extraordinary works of art. And some colleagues of mine sometimes ask me, well, do you think that our ministry was better when it was at Palazzo Chigi? Well, according to me, that was a real cultural revolution because when we studied history of art at high school, of course, we studied the different movements. And then when entering the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we had the possibility to admire contemporary and modern works of art. But not only, we also have multimedia installations, we have videos, and very important avant-garde pieces. And again, the question was always the same: why are you doing something like that? We thought that that was necessary. It was mandatory for us to protect that collection of art. The ministry needed to do something in order to change and reinterpret its image. And the extraordinary fact of those works of art is that they have become really important. They are now a key part of our palace. Somebody asked us, is this a museum? Well, no, this is not a museum. This is not a museum for two reasons. First of all, because we try to change the works of art that we display at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs quite often, more or less every 2 years. And then, in a museum, there is always a separation, or better said, a dissociation between the work of art and the daily life, whereas in our headquarters, in our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there is no dissociation at all, no separation at all. As you can see from this picture, the different ministers of the Mediterranean regions sat at that table, and that table is a real work of art. So different representatives of a lot of countries visit our ministry and at the same time visit our collection. This is also a collection which is open to the public, so everybody can admire it and visit it. So not only the foreign delegations visiting our palace have the possibility to visit and admire those works of art, but also, let's say, common people have the possibility to do that. And we receive groups from all over Italy. So we have this fantastic, extraordinary situation according to which the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has very important friends, that is to say, people loving our artistic collection. And over the last 25 years, and I have to thank my colleagues that are in here for that, we were able to organize more than 70 art exhibitions in foreign countries from an international point of view. Of course, not at the same time, but we were able to display our works of art also in other international countries. So we had the possibility to contribute to the international reckoning of Italian artists that otherwise wouldn't have been well known all over the world. So I am deeply convinced that our job is essential also from this point of view. But could we stop there? I mean, when a delegation from UNESCO visited our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we had the possibility to talk together about the actual cities of the world. So Paris, Berlin, Beijing, Tokyo, Rome, Montreal, and so on and so forth. And they also published a specific book about that. That book is titled The Development Axis, that underlined the beauty of the present time. Well, in that book and during our conversation, they said that Rome is better represented by this square, the Tridente of Piazza del Popolo, that you can see in this picture. And I was saying that the UNESCO normally represents Rome with the so-called Tridente of Piazza del Popolo, created by Sisto V. I think that you all know and are familiar with that place. And that was the only image used, let's say, back then to represent Rome. Actually, 25 years ago, when we published the first catalog of the first art exhibition of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I asked to the organization to describe the history of that palace and to integrate it within the wider, broader history of the neighborhood. So we said that that palace, in a different way compared to what the majority of my colleagues used to think, was not only built during the fascist period, but it was completed between 1956 and 1959, so during the First Republic, during the First Italian Republic. So we can say that that palace represents a kind of time link between the present and the past, but also the future. So it was totally correct for us to organize that exhibition of art and to include modern art, contemporary art, in general, works of art belonging to the 20th century. So we asked ourselves, should we focus a little bit more also on the architecture of the palace? And so we decided to put in place some actions. First of all, for example, we asked a group of architects and urban designers to develop a first book about the abstract categories of the architecture of the 20th century, so mainly focused on innovation, on color, on transparency, so abstract categories. And we asked them to include in that catalog, in that book, also some important works of art of the mostly representative artists of that period. So we were able to create and publish that book that has also been translated into 4 different languages. That book is called Italy Wills. It is still available, actually. And it was a very important book for us all to underline the importance of the art of the 20th century for Rome. Then in the year 2000, we asked the former mayor of Rome, Mr. Rutelli, to give more importance to a square located just opposite the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And so we worked together so that we could completely renovate that square right opposite the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where at the time there was just a public parking, you know. So we worked together with Umberto Riva in order to regenerate, renovate that square, to create a big boulevard reaching the river with very important sculptures inspired by the drawings of Armando Brazzini that were present on the Flaminio bridge. So we started little by little putting in place several initiatives and interventions, drawing our inspiration from the artistic collection of the ministry itself. So our palace is a 7-floor palace. And after renovating the square just opposite the palace, we said that maybe it was the right moment to focus our attention on what was beyond that square, on the surroundings of our palace that, again, at the time it was considered as a marginal area of Rome, as the suburbs, let's say, of Rome. Actually, during the 3rd century, the Flaminio Street, and therefore the area where our palace is located, was extremely important. It was a fully decorated area, and we thought that maybe it was the correct time, the right time to do something to renovate also that area of our important city. So from our palace, we can easily reach the river. We can easily reach the most historical and the important neighborhoods of the city, and therefore it was impossible to consider that area, the Flaminia area, as a suburb, as a marginal area. Architectures have always worked in that specific area and realized beautiful buildings. And also during the Olympic Games that took place in Rome in 1960, architects in general were able to create and build new buildings. Also, the Olympic Village, for example, was a fantastic and still is a fantastic place that, according to us, was not really taken into consideration. So we said that that was an area, an urban area with an extraordinary value that unfortunately at that moment was not fully appreciated. So that urban area had all the possible services. So we had the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Sports and Health, the Olympic Theater, the Festival of Cinema takes place in that specific area. So that was the most important part, let's say, of the municipality of Rome to renovate, because we needed to give a new life to that urban area. Again, this is really close to Piazza del Popolo. This is really close to the walls of the city of Rome. And moreover, there are some fantastic buildings designed by very important architects. So we thought that it was necessary to give a new importance to that urban area, just to show to other people, to other countries, that Rome is not just an historical town, it is also a modern and contemporary town. So nowadays we really would like to create a deeper link between that urban area, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the rest of the municipality. We wanted to create a more direct link with the river, with the Tiber River. We wanted to create more public spaces, more open spaces. We want to welcome people in that urban area. We want to encourage them to come and visit that urban area. So what I wanted to tell you is that thanks to the very important presences of that area, we can now create a new guide of Rome that is not only focused on the Colosseum, on the Foro Italico, or other important historical buildings, but that is also focused on more modern and contemporary aspects of our city. I have the terrible role to unfortunately stop you because we're running out of time. So this is another example. This is a guide of Rome, and if you have a closer look at it, you can see all the historical buildings. In here, you can see the most modern parts of Rome that almost nobody know, but they do exist. They are in there, and we want people to enjoy those most modern parts. So just to conclude this presentation and my speech, I just would like to tell you that we are in here not to do small, unimportant things, but to work at 100% in order to create a more modern and fair place, area for our society. This is really important for everybody. This is really important for architects in particular, because architects play a central role in order to renovate our towns and our cities, in order to carry out an urban regeneration process. And I also would like to tell you that we need to always be restless. We don't need to be the man of the past. We need to be the man of the future. I am now quoting Aldo Moro, but this is still a very important speech. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador Vatani, for your speech, for your intervention that was really interesting, that gave us the possibility to think about the past and the future. And I think that that last sentence is really important to maybe sum up, actually, the spirit that is gathering us in here today. Now I give the floor to Rosalia Vittorini, architecture teacher at the Tor Vergata University of Rome. She also studies modern and contemporary architecture, and she's here to have a speech with the title "From the Foro Italico to the Architecture of the Third Millennium." And I please ask you to stick to the time, that is to say 10 minutes per intervention. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. I would like to guide you through a synthetic itinerary concerning the contemporary district. Of course, we needed to start from the Foro Italico, as you can understand from the title of my intervention, in order to have a comparison between the Foro Italico, that in the past was called the Foro dello Sport, and Foro Mussolini, and the different transformations that were created by Enrico Del Debbio and Luigi Moratti. So the Foro Italico was the first sport center, let's say open-air center, that was created in 1928. Its construction took several years to be completed, and Luigi Moratti replaced Enrico Del Debbio as main architect starting from 1933. As we can understand from a very rapid comparison, even from a visual point of view, the vision, the philosophy of the two architects was totally different, because Moratti focused on a wider territory compared to the first plans of Del Debbio, with a more limited number of buildings as well. So the comparison between the two architects is really interesting, because we can find two iconic buildings, that is to say the Accademia di Educazione Fisica that you can see in here from Enrico Del Debbio, built from 1928 to 1932, the first building really marking the creation of Foro Italico. That was an academy, a sport academy, and the architect decided to invent an innovative image for that building with an overlapping of marble and abstract elements over a completely red facade. And that red facade will become the most iconic element of that building. Within the building, we have a very interesting infrastructure that is completely covered by the external facade and completely hidden by the external facade. And just a few meters from the previous building, we can find another building, that is to say Casa delle Armi, the weapon house, designed by Luigi Moretti. The construction started back in 1933, and that was a real revolution within architecture. Luigi Moretti was a very young architect. He only was 26 years old when he designed this building, and we can find all the main sources of inspiration of this architect. Again, the comparison between these two architects is really important because Del Debbio studied at the Accademia delle Belle Arti, whereas Luigi Moretti studied at the architecture faculty of Rome. They had a different background, and they also had a totally different vision concerning the new buildings. So concerning Luigi Moretti and his design, actually he was not influenced by the purpose of a specific building when building it, when designing it. We can find all the main themes and topics of his creativity. This building has a very interesting structure made of concrete, completely made of concrete. And according to Moretti's idea, this building needed to be seen as taken from one unique block of marble, because on the surface we have very small and thin layers of marble. That was the first time an architect decided to do something like that. And as we can see from the original drawing of Mr. Moretti, marble was applied in a very specific way, especially all around the corners and the edges of the building. That was an experimental building. It is extremely important. It is really beautiful. And it is one of the most extraordinary examples of the architecture of the 20th century here in Italy. So Moretti focused on space because space, according to him, was a fundamental element when designing a new building. And a building, an architect had the possibility to modify the space. I think we are having technical issues concerning the PowerPoint presentation. Anyway, from this picture, you can also have a side view of the building where we have glass. And that, again, was a real experiment for that moment of time. This is an ongoing glass window, a very big glass window. And it was the first time an architect decided to design something like that in Rome. Next to that big glass window, there is a mosaic that Mr. Vatani mentioned before that gives more importance, let's say, to the building itself. Within the building, we also have several works of art, reminding of the Foro Italico, of course. This is the swimming pool and the surrounding walls are painted and they are decorated with mosaics. I am having some technical issues with the PowerPoint presentation. I don't know why. Maybe we can try starting from the beginning of it. Okay, here it is. Thank you so much. So sorry about that. So in here you can see some other pictures of the gym, uh, the building, the fencing gym. And Moretti decided to experiment this kind of design for the first time, and it will then become an iconic element of his buildings. So the coverage of this big fencing gym is created by two different layers, interrupted by the central axis. And there is also a big glass in the upper part of the gym where light can penetrate from. This is the Stadio dei Marmi, Marble Stadium. Again, this is connected, let's say, to the previous academy. This was the big glass window I was talking about, just to propose a continuity of the surfaces. And this is the Canevari mosaic on a golden background. So the Foro is composed by several other parts. We do not have time to describe them all. I just would like to mention the central axis, already defined by Del Debbio and then finalized by Moretti, where we have the Piazzale dell'Imperio and the fountain of Paniconi and Pediconi. So this square was designed by Moretti, and we can see also the scratches and the first drawings of Mr. Moretti to create a kind of path or itinerary towards the buildings dedicated to sport, and at the same time to better represent the story of Rome, the history of Rome, and the fundamental parts of that history. There are also different plans within these squares so that people can easily admire the different mosaics that are present on the floor. I'm not going to talk about the palace of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs because we have already talked about that. This is a very big building. And it testifies the steps backwards, so let's say, that architecture took at the end of the 30s. So architecture throughout the years experimented different innovations, leading it towards modernity. This is again the Sport Palace. I cannot understand how to move on with the slides. I don't know what I have to do. I'm not able to show you the picture I was talking about. Here it is. Here it is. So after the Second World War, when the municipality of Rome decided to choose the places to propose for the Olympic Games, of course, they focused on the Flaminio area where there were some sport palaces and infrastructures dedicated to sport. So the Flaminio area, together with the Air neighborhood, became the two most important areas for the Olympic Games. And in 1911, in that specific area of the town, there was the stadium for sport. Again, I don't know how to move on with the slide. This is, again, the sport palace created by Nanni, and he tried to use for the first time the pre-construction of some specific elements that are then assembled on the within the palace. The Flaminio Stadium is really close to the Sport Palace. It was renovated, completely renovated before the Olympic Games of 1960. And also in that case, the designer focused on the light in order to get as much light as possible within the stadium. I'm so sorry about that. I don't know if you can maybe help us or support us. Maybe I'm clicking too fast, I don't know. So in the same area of the stadium, we also have the Olympic Village, again, dedicated to and used by athletes for the Olympic Games of 1960. Right now, it is still used, and there are some families living in it. This is another important building, let's say, that we need to talk about. That is to say, the overpass or the flyover. Also, in this case, if we have a look at the map, we can still find the idea of Mr. Moretti of the space shaping all the other buildings, because we can find different types of shapes in between the buildings, so more wider spaces, more limited spaces. So this is a real interpretation of space, also applied to household buildings. And this is really interesting to compare with some previous interventions, because in here we can admire buildings and apartments from the 20s that are not that far from the Olympic Village, but we can see that the structure and the infrastructure is completely different. At the end of the 20th century, the contemporary district welcomed new architectural works of art, such as the Auditorium of Renzo Piano, but also the Mosque, which is not far from it. So all those buildings strengthened the cultural vocation of that neighborhood. So not far from the Renzo Piano's auditorium, we can also find a very important museum, which is the National Museum of the 20th Century Arts, and that is to say the Maxi Museum. And right now, within this museum, there are some ongoing projects in order to make it even bigger and more attractive for the municipality of Rome. So the Maxi Museum was created on a previously military area. And right close to it, we can find another area that hopefully in the next year will come to a new life. Once again, this was a previously military area or territory. The master plan of that area was realized some years ago by the Vigano firm. Two public tenders have already been finalized in order to start the construction of the Polo Flaminio in the upper picture, and also the second building that you've seen in the previous image. Several buildings are already part of the quality chart of the municipality of Rome, which is a strategic tool providing designers and architects some specific indications in order to intervene on some existing buildings in order to renovate them. And most of those buildings have already been integrated in that quality chart. That's why, for us, the contemporary district will become a real lab where architects and designers may gather in order to study new techniques, in order to renovate and regenerate several buildings and monuments of the municipality of Rome. Actually, some of the most important buildings, actually, of the municipality of Rome are in decay or are completely abandoned. That's why, for us, it is really important to renovate them and regenerate them. So this is a comparison, again, between a picture taken in 1961 and another picture taken in 2020 concerning the same area, that is to say, the Foro Italico. As you can see, the landscape, the natural landscape, is pretty important because there are a lot of trees and green natural areas. At the same time, over the years, new stadiums and fields were created and built, such as the tennis field that is right next to the Olympic Stadium, and that in the near future will benefit from a coverage in order to protect it from the rain. And the Olympic Stadium completely changed the appearance, let's say, of the area. After the creation of the Olympic Stadium, it was also necessary to renovate all the streets, all the surrounding streets. So several changes and modifications over the years. Some buildings, as I was saying before, are still in decay. Some of them are also abandoned. Therefore, it is necessary to work on those buildings, especially buildings from the 30s. And it is really necessary to propose new projects in order to renovate them. We also have an ongoing project for the Flaminio Stadium in order to renovate it. Unfortunately, the works have not been completed so far, but we hope that we will be able to achieve that conservation project concerning, again, the Flaminio Stadium in order to bring it back to its original beauty. So that conservation project was really important, and it is still really important for us. The plan is available on our website, on the Getty website, and on the website of the municipality of Rome, because it is part of our regeneration project of the contemporary district. I'm so sorry again for the issues with the PowerPoint presentation, and thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much, Ms. Vittorini. Of course, it is really important to strengthen the research and the protection, regeneration, renovation projects of this district, of this heritage, which is a living heritage and very fragile at the same time. So thank you very much for your presentation. And now I would like to give the floor to the following speaker, to Mr. Andrea Bruschi, teacher at the Architecture Department at the La Sapienza University of Rome. He is also a researcher, and his presentation is called "The District as an Unfinished Project." Good morning, and thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you all for being here this morning. I'm sorry in advance, because my intervention will be a quite critical one. Because actually, from the urban point of view, the Flaminio area, Foro Italico and Farnesina, show discontinuity between its parts and sometimes also unbalances and complexities of usage. One first thing to remember and to underline is that this is not an even, homogeneous area. It is actually quite the opposite, and it could and it gathers, it contains different urban areas and elements from different architectural styles and movements. So on one hand, this is a strength, because within the district we can find different architectural movements showing the importance of the architectural history of Italy. And on the other hand, this is also a conflictual relationship, because we can find some abandoned areas, or again, as we were saying before, areas that are totally in decay. Within this urban context, we have an open scheme that is really important, but also sometimes a difficult relationship with that open space that becomes also residual space, full of discontinuities and interruptions. So that asset derives from an historical lack of finished buildings. So in some ways, we still need to totally clarify the intentions of this district from a cultural point of view, from an historical point of view, and also from a sport point of view. So we can start talking about this district as an unfinished project, as I was saying before. So this area is touched by the Tiber River, by an almost perfect geometry, but there are also some hills in the surrounding area, creating almost a natural valley. So we have Monte Mario, Villa Gloria, and several other areas all around this basin, this valley. So this valley is still very natural and very green. The Tiber River creates this perfect natural arch, which is typical of this area. And this natural element has always been used and has always been seen as something irresistible. So this natural landscape has a double nature, let's say, which is almost quite in contrast. So boulevards with trees and the river, which is totally in contrast. Starting from this duplicity, we can see how humans started to settle in this area. I'm having some issues as well finding the correct pictures that I would like to show you. It would be very difficult for me to find the correct one. Okay, so sorry about that. So this is a plan from 1909, dividing the area into different neighborhoods according to the shape of the river and the natural landscape, of course. So we can see one main street defining the main perimeter. And at the beginning, that was the real historic center of Rome. So there is this scheme divided into three parts. And Poltemilvio comes in a secondary position. But in 1909, there were some buildings present in that area, some warehouses as well, because some urban actions were present in that neighborhood. The geometry, anyway, and the division into three parts of the area is still visible also in this picture dating 1927. And that same geometry will be used by Del Debbio in order to imagine and design the city of sport, as we were saying before. Here it is. This is one of Mr. Del Debbio's projects. He created several projects transforming the asset and the appearance of the Foro Italico, but he always kept a very symmetrical division into several parts. Actually, this is a quite strict division, as we can see from the project and from the image. And still nowadays, there is a defined separation between Poltemilvio and Foro Italico on the other hand. That division, that strict division and that strict geometry was also kept because in the 20s it was impossible to remove a little wood that was present in that area, and also because there was no bridge connecting that part of the city to the opposite side of the river. So the project of the Casa delle Armi, the weapon house, was designed on one side with a facade without windows in order to protect and hide that famous wood that could not be removed or touched. And on the opposite side, it decided to insert that big window we saw before. In the 30s, we can start seeing a trend which is, let's say, quite typical of the municipality of Rome, I suppose also of other towns and cities from all over the world. This is a negative trend. That is to say that urban plans are never completed. They never come to an end. Actually, we can say the same thing. We can see the same thing with the projects of Del Debbio, because Moretti decided to completely revisit the plans and the projects. And he decided to place exactly in that same spot the Casa Littoria that will become then the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Moretti has a totally different vision, territorial vision, compared to Del Debbio. A vision which is less urban and more geographical, that is based on the principle of the transformation of Foro Mussolini, especially in the northern area, where the Cassia Street gets from the city center. So where people could come and visit that area from the city center. So Moretti places the Foro Mussolini inside the national plan and the Rome Republican plan by turning the directional axis following the Tiber River through the E42 neighborhood that nowadays is called Eur. So that was a critical change because up to that moment, the urban creation was based on the west-east axis and not the north-south one. This is another picture taken in 1941. We can see Moretti explaining to Mussolini and other people of the party the new projects on this rendering. And he introduced this different vision, this different rendering on a very big scale, and he imagined the modification of a part of the Tiber River because he wanted to create a new Tiberina Island. You can also see it in the picture in the top left corner. And that was a critical element, quite a scenographic element, I would say, reflecting the imperialistic vision of Mr. Moretti. Moretti's project is once again an unfinished project. And that is not linked to internal version, to internal facts, but to international facts, and of course the Second World War. Within the vision, concerning the vision of Mr. Moretti, what is still present is the Casa Littoria, the actual headquarters of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And the empty area all around the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will then be filled with new buildings that unfortunately cannot define a strong urban context or structure, especially in comparison with the big Casa Littoria Palace. This is because there was not an organic urban plan or because the previous plans remained unfinished. As we said before, unfinishedness then translated into the fact that within this area of the town, there were not events, for example, in the past, and people didn't enjoy, let's say, living in that part of the area. For the Olympic Games of 1960, architects and designers decided to focus on the other side of the river. So the Olympic Village inaugurated a new area of the living far from the historical center, and the strength of the project was the presence of green and natural area all around the living buildings. So within the Olympic Village, the open space still has a very great importance, And that gave the possibility to the Flaminio area to be seen as a safer area, an area that should be enjoyed more by the population. So during the Olympic Games, well, before the Olympic Games, new projects were accepted in order to enrich the Flaminio area. But immediately after the Olympic Games, that part of the municipality of the city, let's say that was abandoned for some years. So even nowadays, we can still see the incompleteness of those projects because, for example, there are no connections between the different buildings that are present in that area of the town. And as I was saying before, as my colleagues said before, several buildings have also been completely abandoned. This is, again, the unfinished plan of the day. We need to focus more on the buildings, and we need to focus even more on unfinished buildings in order to give them a new life, to renovate them, and to give the possibility to people, not only from Italy, not only from Rome, but from all over the world, to start enjoying those buildings, maybe for the first time or once again. So starting from the analysis of this incompleteness of the area, we observed the city from a different standpoint, from a different point of view. So we were able to come up with this map where we decided to highlight the areas in need of a greater intervention in terms of renovation and regeneration. So incompleteness was not only a critical element, but at the same time also one of the main resources in order to give a new life to that neighborhood, in order to start working on inclusion and a greater mix, let's say, of elements and cultures within this specific area of the town. Our plan and our project is still based on the three main axes that we have seen also throughout the years. First of all, the Flaminio Street, crossing the area, the Olympic Village on one hand, and also the previous buildings that I showed you before on the other hand. This is the general master plan of the expected interventions in order to better reinterpret the Flaminio Street, in order to create also a pedestrian area and some public spaces, of course, to give new life to the ancient Flaminio Street. So the most important elements of this path will be the stop of the Line C of the subway, and also the recovery of abandoned area all around Corso Francia. A second important asset is the one connecting Monte Mario and Villa Glori, thanks to Via Guido Reni and the Ponte della Musica, the Bridge of Music. That will completely change the perspective of the district, because thanks to Via Guido Reni, we will be able to create a connection between two areas of the town that was totally separated, that have always been totally separated. So the auditorium will get a new access point, and of course we will intervene on the entire auditorium in order to totally renovate it. Concerning the Monte Mario area, we think about creating a museum dedicated to culture and another museum dedicated to sport and football. The third structural axis is the Tiber River itself, because we would like to strengthen the infrastructural character of the Tiber River. We would like to create a path dedicated to bikes only, and we would like to solve all the most important critical elements, the existing critical elements. So alongside the river, there are some areas in real decay, abandoned areas, for example, Piazza Mancini, where we can find uneven, non-homogeneous buildings. And we would like to intervene also in those areas to give them a new life. And we would like to create new urban spaces able to use the river as a connection element. I would like to conclude by saying that the importance of this district is already present in the regulatory master plan of the municipality of Rome. And we will focus on the urban area called the Farnesina, Foro Italico, Flaminio. So the regulatory master plan defines this contemporary district as one of the most important areas where we want to focus our interventions concerning urban regeneration. We have already validated some initiatives. Unfortunately, we don't have time to talk about all of them, but I would like to stress the importance of the realization of the stop of the underground at the subway near the Farnesina, near the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because it will really modify the entire master plan. It will modify also the way people can join, can get to this area of the town, and this will also allow a different vision of the uncertain open spaces and public spaces that are still present in this area. So the contemporary district will become, of course, an open-air museum, but also a very important urban district. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Bruschi. Thank you very much, Mr. Vattani, Ms. Vittorini, and Mr. Bruschi, of course. So while we change the scene a little bit, let's say, we can maybe enjoy one of the videos that were created for this occasion. Okay, so here I am back again. I would like to thank all of you again for being here, and I would like to welcome here on stage all the speakers for this round table. So first of all, Mr. Miguel Gotor, Councillor for Culture of the Municipality of Rome, Mr. De Tedis, the President of the Maxi Foundation, Alessandro Giuli, Professor Fulvio Irace from the Polytechnic University of Milan, Daniele Pitteri, CEO Fondazione Musica per Roma, and Mr. Franco Purini, architect and professor. And it is a real honor to have you here at the Triennale di Milano. So welcome. So you are all very important speakers. As we do not have much time available, I would like to start with a quick round of interventions, let's say. So I would like to give the floor to Mr. Gotor. Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. I would like to thank the president of the Triennale di Milano, Mr. Boeri, and I would like to thank you all for being here this morning in order to better analyze this project. That has been perfectly presented by Mr. Vattani, and that has been possible thanks to the support of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Over the last 2 years, we had the possibility to meet Mr. Vattani several times, and we had the possibility to meet Mr. Gualtieri, the mayor of Rome, several times. I personally had the possibility to learn more about this project, which is also supported by the municipality of Rome, because it increases the importance. A very big area of the municipality of Rome, including different parts of the town, such as Farnesina, Foro Italico, Flaminio. This is a very important heritage from the cultural point of view, the sports point of view, the environmental point of view. And when we intervene on the urban asset of a town, it is really important to do it from different standpoints. So as we already have a contemporary district in the northern part of Rome, right now we are doing exactly the same thing in the southern part of Rome. We are regenerating industrial buildings and buildings of the past in order to renovate them and to completely regenerate, let's say, this urban area. We are planning to do more or less the same thing also near Roma 3, so in another area of the town, where we would like to enhance the local area by regenerating it. And we also would like to focus on other parts of the river, such as Ponte Risorgimento and Ponte Matteotti. Anyway, it is still possible, it is already possible to see what we have done throughout the years. Concerning the contemporary district project, there are two protection obstacles, let's say. So the quality charter on one hand, and on the other hand, the fact that this area is part of the so-called buffer zone, which is linked to UNESCO. So the interventions that will be carried out needed to be, first of all, approved by the municipality of Rome and the different agencies working for the municipality of Rome. Within the contemporary district, there are several sub-projects that we are implementing. The most important one, just to give you a couple of information concerning it, is the one regarding the Science Museum. In the previous prison of Via Guido Reni, right opposite the Maxi Museum. So, of course, in that area, we needed to create a synergy and a collaboration with the existing Maxi Museum. We wanted to recover a lifelong and scientific vocation of our town. So we have always been talking about the creation of a science museum. Now this is turning into something real. This is a real project. It is an ongoing project near the Zoologic Park and the La Sapienza University. So we really would like to create a synergy also with the Maxi Museum. The investment amounts to 78 million euros. We have already published the tender. We have already closed it. We already have the winner of the tender, of the public tender. That was and we will create this forest project, and we will move on according to the plan. For Villa Glory, the investment amounts to 2 million euros in order to regenerate the heritage that is present within that villa, within that building. Because it was really necessary, actually, to improve and regenerate that building. Thanks to the funds for the Jubilee, we are now able to regenerate also the rivers, the side of the river, especially near the contemporary district, in order to recreate a natural area near the shores of the river. And of course, we will conclude by 2025. Then concerning the Sport Palace, the Nervi Palace, we have almost finished the works, and we think that the Sport Palace will open during the upcoming month in order to host sports activities. I would like to conclude this intervention by underlining an aspect that is really important, according to me, from the cultural point of view. So, of course, the challenge of the contemporary district was almost mandatory for Rome, for the municipality of Rome, because Rome cannot only be an historical town, a town that looks towards its past. Rome also needs to look towards its future. Maybe this can be difficult at first. It would be difficult to turn Rome into the town of modernity, a contemporary town from one day to the other, because Rome is full of lifelong traditions that are connected to its past. But actually, the contemporary district will be a fundamental step in order to give to Rome a more modern allure. Rome has always had the same challenge, that is to say, to provide a more modern and contemporary interpretation of the past. This is what the new generation needs to do. And the contemporary district, the regeneration of this very important area, moves towards this direction. So we're very happy about this project and the attention that the municipality of Milan is giving to this initiative. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Councillor. I would like to ask to Alessandro De Pevis, General Director, the Ministry of Culture. What is the importance, let's say, of this project from your standpoint? Thank you very much. I really would like to thank Mr. Boeri for welcoming us and also Mr. Battani for the organization of this very important conference and this very important project. So, of course, I'm not in here to talk about architecture because my knowledge is quite limited in that field. Anyway, Mr. Battani titled its speech Architectural Diplomacy and explained in a very detailed and meticulous way why architecture is really important for our country, for our countries in general, I would say, not only for Italy, but for all the European countries. So, for example, we can see the center, the Pompidou Center in Paris, but also the airport in Shenzhen in China. And I could give you some other examples of the importance of architecture all around the world, of course. There are very young talents that are becoming more and more important on the international plan. And of course, architecture has always been important. I worked for 4 years as an ambassador in Poland, where the Italian architecture is really visible. We can talk about the palace over water in Poland, of course, or the castle that was studied back in the 16th century by Italian architects. So the Directorate General I work for aims at promoting the Italian culture and Italian art all over the world. That's why architecture is so important for us. And Mr. Battani talked about an important project together with the Maxi Museum, and I also would like to get to learn more actually about this project because we could definitely support it and we could definitely work together in order to support it. Talking about the contemporary district, this is a more complex project, of course, because when we talk about Del Debbio, Moretti, Foschini, and so on and so forth, we needed to make those designers and architects more well-known all over the world, but we also needed to give the possibility to other people to appreciate Italian architecture in Rome when coming to Rome. This is an urban area with very specific features. We have boulevards with trees. We have different palaces and buildings. We have sport structures. And of course, they are the headquarters of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We now act in order to give new life to the buildings of the 30s. And for us, this is a very important project aiming at integrating even more this urban area within the cultural itineraries of the municipality of Rome, and also in order to give the possibility to people to learn more and discover actually this urban area that at the moment is not well known. So we really would like to give an international dimension to this urban area. So this is the reason why we're really interested in this project. This is the reason why there is also our logo on the slide. And that's it for the moment. Thank you so much. Alessandro Giuli. So The Maxi Museum is right at the heart, let's say, of this project, also thanks to its mission, really at the heart of the contemporary district. Yes, exactly, at the heart of the contemporary district. And we truly believe in the relationship between contemporary art and art of the past, traditional art. So first of all, let me thank Mr. Boeri and the Triennale di Milano for welcoming us in here today and supporting us. I really like the idea of representing the Maxi Museum here in Milan today, because, of course, the Maxi Museum and Rome in general is a very important town. This is a very important museum. We need to give the possibility to everyone to visit it and to visit this town. And I also would like to say that the speech of Mr. Bruschi was amazing, according to me. It was fantastic because it gave me the possibility to better understand the link between the Tiber River and the different areas of the town, the need of a real urban regeneration in Rome in order to act in a more conscious way. And I just would like to give a couple of examples. So Ms. Cristina Collettini is now carrying out very interesting studies concerning the relationship between the Nervi sport house, in particular the losange ceiling of that sport house, and the Venere building, the Venus building, actually, that we can find in the Distretto dell'Antico, in the ancient district. Actually, I cannot explain in detail the relationship between these two elements, but this example is really important in order to underline the existence of a link between what is modern, what is considered to be modern, and what is considered to be ancient. In this case, the past and the present and the future of Rome. And in order to make this link even more visible and tangible for everybody, we need to insist on the regeneration of all those areas. So the Maxi Museum is located within the Foro Italico, so it will be located at the heart, right at the heart of the contemporary district. And therefore, we needed to strengthen the link, our link with the past. We need to be completely part of a more organic plan for the future that draws its inspiration from the past, of course. We needed to foster exchanges when architects and people in general will come to Rome visiting this new contemporary district. And of course, we needed to foster the exchanges between the past and the present and the future, as I was saying before. So this project will be fundamental, will be a key project for the municipality of Rome, for the future of Rome, and also for us, for our museum, for the Maxi Museum. So our role in this case, not only for the project, but also for the upcoming generations, is to leave tangible traces of our organic and shared vision. So first of all, I can think about the Jubilee of 2025. And in that case, we need to enhance and increase the dialogue between institutions and also between the past and the present of Rome. I just would like to conclude my intervention talking about the Flaminio Stadium. I can understand that there is an ongoing project supported by the Cassa Depositi e Prestiti in order to renovate the stadium. And I think that the Flaminio Stadium is a very important cultural and sport center that, in my mind, needs to become a European stadium. So it should become the symbol of this universal vocation we started from. And that is the reason why I proposed to Mr. Gualtieri and Mr. Malago to turn this stadium into a European stadium, as I was saying before. And to create, again, the first stadium of the European Union managed by the European Commission in a place that can really represent our access towards Northern Europe. And that could also be the symbol of a greater identity, greater European identity. In that way, Rome will turn not only into the capital of sport, but also the capital of Europe, let's say, the capital of culture. Also because we will soon celebrate the anniversary of the treaties of Rome. So thanks to the support of Mr. Vatani, we will not stop to Milanum, but you will keep on hearing about this ongoing project, and I hope you will see it turning into reality thanks to the support of several different institutions, not only Italian institutions, as I was saying before, but also European institutions. And I also hope that Italian citizens and Roman citizens will definitely support us in this project. Thank you very much, Andrea Giuli. Thank you very much for your intervention and for your support. Mr. Irace. So maybe a quick comment concerning what we have said during the morning session, the first session. So this conference is really important, also for Milan, actually, for the city of Milan, because last Sunday I was saying that, let's say, this project, this architectural project is like a derby match, you know, between Rome and Milan. But actually, this project, this contemporary district, will create an even more important network and a greater collaboration between these two towns, these important towns. So the contemporary district will give the possibility to young designers and young architects to explore new projects and new interventions. So here in Milan, the private intervention in order to reshape and rebuild the town was stronger and more important compared to the public intervention, whereas in Rome, the situation is almost the opposite. So in Rome, the public intervention is always fundamental in order to renovate buildings. From our point of view, and from the point of view of Milan, we also need to criticize a little bit what we've done over the last years. So the greatest innovations turning Milan into the most European town of Italy are also financed by the private sector, not by the public one, as I was saying before. This can be a criticism. This is actually a criticism that has been underlined in recent years because we've always said that the public sector doesn't pay a lot of attention to these kind of initiatives and projects. So this kind of project, the contemporary district, is really important in order to foster the public intervention. I'm sorry, but the mic is not working right now. Okay. So today in here, there are a lot of representatives of public institutions, and this is really important for us, you know. As I was saying before, in recent years, we don't trust the public sector anymore because, again, as I was saying before, the most important innovative projects were financed by the private sector. So for you, this will be a real challenge. That is to say, to give us the possibility to see that this new project, financed and supported by the public sector, will turn into something real, will become a real success. And this will be a challenge also from another point of view, that is to say, the fact that the urban regeneration, the urban planning is making some steps forward, is still nowadays a very important field, living field, let's say. Because, again, in recent years, we haven't paid a lot of attention to urban regeneration in general here in Italy. So, again, this is a double challenge. Of course, we want you to succeed. This is not just a Roman project. This is an Italian project, a project that will be important for our country as a whole, let's say. And it is normal, as for all big projects, to see results little by little through the time, so in the upcoming years. But I hope that population will play an active role within this project. And again, I'm not only talking about the Italian population, but the world population. I hope that the citizens of the world will have the possibility to benefit from this project. So you now have another big responsibility, that is to say, to use architecture, to use art, to call the most important artists of our time in order to contribute to this important project, to this important modern and contemporary project, so that contemporary art will be more appreciated by everyone in the world. Involving citizens will be fundamental in order to give them the possibility to understand the importance of this project, the importance of this challenge. Otherwise, it will be even more difficult. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. It is really interesting also to talk about the future and the upcoming years. So, Daniele Piteri. Those buildings that are not considered as domestic actually can be seen as household buildings as well. As we were saying before, a lot of families live in the former Olympic Village. Yes, exactly. So first of all, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for the invitation. And I really would like to thank Mr. Battani because since the very beginning, he was able to explain me in detail this project, and I've always been a great supporter, let's say, of this project. So I am in charge of the Auditorium Parco della Musica, and It is one of the most important buildings in that area on that axis, not the north-south one, but the east-west one. And then there are also other buildings that are really important on the same street in the same area. Right in the middle, we have right the center, let's say, of the cross. We have the cross that was described by the professor where the two axes meet. So we are, let's say, halfway between the two axes. So why is it important for us to play a fundamental role within this project? And why is this project important for the future? Well, this is important because even if in the Farnesina, Foro Italico, Flaminio urban area, there are two important ministries, Italian ministries, that area of the town is quite neglected, let's say. So it is important to recreate a new relationship with the cultural aspect and with citizens in general. As we were saying before, the Maxi Museums and the Auditorium and the Santa Cecilia play a very important role because we organize daily activities dedicated to Roman citizens, but also for tourists, in order to attract more visitors interested in the cultural aspect. But at the same time, again, the rest of the area is quite neglected by tourists and by citizens. As we said, we have already said before that this area is quite in decay, almost abandoned in certain ways. And for example, the Piazzale Polodoro nowadays is characterized by abandoned kiosks, for example, abandoned buildings. And what we need to do is to focus on those sectors, on those areas, in order to regenerate them. And we are lucky enough to have the possibility to work with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Culture, and of course, other key players such as the Maxi Museum. The Olympic Village you were mentioning before was regenerated also from the real estate point of view, thanks to the presence of the auditorium first and then the Maxi Museum. And together with the Maxi Museum and other institutions, such as the Constructor National Institution, the CIDAC, which is the Institution of Historical and Artistic Towns of Italy, we are trying to organize for the upcoming month of December an initiative called the Città in Scena. It is a festival dedicated to urban regeneration that involves different Italian territories. We have already organized 3 festivals, and 2 more will be organized in the upcoming months. This is a very important project that, again, will be concluded in Rome because we will welcome 50 towns to give them the possibility to describe their regeneration projects, their urban regeneration projects. Another very interesting thing is that a lot of projects also deal with the regeneration of the public space intended as a collective space together with buildings and household buildings. We can see some very important examples also in other Italian towns, such as Livorno or other towns. But actually, this association is really interesting. So I invite you all to come to Rome from the 13th to the 16th of December in order to take part to this important festival that is also organized with the support of La Sapienza University and other institutions. One very last thing before concluding. I care a lot, and we care a lot as an auditorium, to protect the contemporary and international vocation that Rome is manifesting. So since the very beginning, together with the municipality of Rome and the Directorate for Big Events, and also together with the Rome Exhibition Center, we decided to create an agreement according to which we represent the Rome hub in different exhibitions throughout the entire world. We also were able to create a very strong relationship with 17 European auditoriums, from Hungary to Lithuania to Spain, Portugal, France, Denmark, the Netherlands, Germany, and so on and so forth. And one of the most important elements at the basis of this network of auditoriums is the fact that we all share contemporary architectural aspects for our auditoriums. So the structure of the auditorium becomes a fil rouge, let's say, within this project. So these are all very important aspects that can add the importance of contemporary art and architecture in a town, in a city such as Rome. Thank you so much. So now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Franco Purini to conclude this roundtable. I have nothing else to add to introduce you, actually. So you have the floor. Thank you. Thank you very much. We said a lot of very important things, so I have almost anything to add on. I just would like to underline some important points and aspects to better define the cultural atmosphere that we can breathe thanks to this important contemporary project and the contemporary district. So Rome is like an infinite text that has never been interpreted at 100%. This is a quote because actually several artists, such as Stendhal and other artists, have always tried to interpret the mystery of Rome, the real meaning of Rome, the substance, the matter, the idea of Rome throughout the years. So we still don't know. We still don't know how to interpret it. And this is really important because it can be seen as negative and positive at the same time. This is an ongoing research in order to understand what is feasible, what we can realize for real. So Rome is like a shared content, and we need to focus on that in order to provide to the new contemporary district its real dimension. What is the real dimension? Well, the contemporary district, it's like a place from history, you know? We can talk about the battle, the fight between Constantine and Maxentius. So several historical events took place in that area of Rome, on the two shores, on the two sides of the Tiber River. And actually, we still don't know with precision how many events, actually, historical events that took place on the Roman territory, because our history is too long, actually. And the Foro Italico has two works of art of Costantino Costantini that were completely different from the fascist period, let's say. So the obelisk of Malevich, but also the building of the swimming pool, which is completely different from the buildings designed by Del Debbio. So again, a great contrast that needs to be highlighted. Again, an historical place, as I was saying before. This is also the access. It also represents an access to Rome coming from the northern part of the city, because there is Ponte Milvio, of course, and after that we can reach the Vatican City. So also in this case, we needed to take into consideration all those different components, all those different aspects when planning the new contemporary district, because all those aspects will be very important for us, but also for the upcoming generations. I also would like to say that according to me, it is necessary to understand that the past doesn't produce anything new. It is right the opposite. The new can describe the past and give a meaning to the past. And this is what we needed to do. We needed to understand how the relationship between the past and the present can be influenced and can be exploited for this project. So we needed to understand that Rome needs to evolve towards the future, of course, starting from its past and keeping an eye on its past. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to interpret archaeology and architecture in Rome. Another thing I would like to say is that, as it is not possible to know how Rome will evolve over the upcoming years, over the next years, at least we should be able to imagine that. So we cannot only have a functional vision. I mean, we create something because we need it. Of course, this is fundamental. We need to eat in order to survive. This is fundamental for us. But this is not something extraordinary. When we do something extraordinary, we create amazing things. We needed to do the same thing. We needed to think about an extraordinary future for Rome in order to create something extraordinary as well. So this point of view should be right at the heart of this project for the contemporary district. Again, we don't only have to think about useful purposes, useful buildings. We also need to think about something extraordinary, something unique. Something that we can see in Rome is the so-called architecture of globalization. This architecture of globalization has completely destroyed the places because we don't have public places reminding us of the past. Those places were completely destroyed. They just act like a background, let's say. A background for what? For the consumerism culture, for the contemporary culture, but not for the heritage, not for our memory, not to preserve the memory of the past. This is a real problem that I just would like to bring up, not only for Rome, I suppose for all the towns in Italy, maybe also in Europe and also in the rest of the world. Because we need to respect the places, we need to respect the history of the places, and we need to protect it. So we need at least to make an attempt to protect the history that is still present in the Farnesina, Foro Italico, Flaminio urban area. So we don't have to focus on the modern aspect only, but also on the historical one in order to protect it. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for these very interesting thoughts, because these are all very precious topics in order to think about what we call contemporary and what we can do in order to protect architecture and the heritage of our cities and towns, to protect our past and to protect the future for the upcoming generations. So again, I really would like to thank you all. Thank you all for your participation. And just to conclude this conference, I would like to show you another video concerning our project, again, to conclude our day and to sum up this contemporary district. So I hope that we will have another occasion as soon as possible to gather and to meet it and to keep on talking about this fantastic project. Thank you so much. Thank you for your participation.